Welcome back to another episode of the Show Me the Data podcast. Today on the show, we have Tom Whiley from eDays, and we're going to break down how to gain commercial insights and unique to your business without investing a ton of money and outsourcing it to a research agency. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. So before we jump in, can you give a 15-second overview of what eDays does in your role there?
Yeah, sure, Alex, no problem. So eDays is an absence management software with intelligent solutions. So we provide businesses all over the world with a more effective means to track employee absence, whether that's holiday or sickness. And then the solution itself allows you to give that data back to those HR leaders around absence trends and allow them to be a bit more proactive with regards to solving those sickness problems, for example. So we serve clients all over the world, from huge brands like ASOS and Coca-Cola, Sony as well. So we're a startup turned scale-up. We have 50 employees at the moment. We're growing 30% year on year ARR. So we are a rapidly growing small business. So my role is head of demand generation. So my role is to feed the funnel and essentially keep those leads coming in.
Love it. So that is a great transition. And as you said, demand generation, getting the leads coming in. And so one of the typical plays when you get to this point is to go out and find unique commercial insights and do research and start to put out things into the market that help establish you as an industry leader. You were in that point in time where that was the next evolution from a content strategy. Fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We feel as though that having original insights gives you more authority and will give you a hook with PR and press as well to get yourself out there as a thought leader.
Absolutely. And so as you've gone through this transition and you started to think about ways to generate commercial insights, did you think about going down the road of outsourcing that, having an outsourced agency or research agency go out and find those insights for you?
Yes. We've actually tried multiple routes before. So we've tried hiring an agency to go out with surveys and target people outside of our main database and go after people, our lookalike audiences, with an email survey, but it's very, very expensive. We didn't really get much of a return. We did get a return from it to some degree, but it was all kind of white paper fed, which obviously in the life cycle of acquiring customer can take up to 1.5 years, 2 years for enterprise, for example. So it takes a while to see the return. So we wanted to explore options because as a small business, we don't have the luxury of a huge marketing budget as these larger SaaS businesses. So we like to spend our money as if it was our own, right? So we wanted to go out there and leverage as much free opportunity as possible to get data. So eDays has over 250,000 users, and that's a big pool of data to go after, right? To get unique insights around absence and sickness trends, which could be a unique spin for PR and content opportunities. But at the moment, as a small business, the resource isn't quite there. We're a very small team still. Our CTO is completely overwhelmed. He's still getting stuck into client onboarding, so he's still multi-skilling at the minute. So we're in the midst of hiring like an absence intelligence specialist to mine this data so we can get that data quicker to feed our content. But we needed a stopgap solution, and that stopgap solution was LinkedIn.
Yeah, which is very interesting, and I'm sure people have started to see more polls popping up across the platform, but I haven't seen it be used in the way I think that you're going to elaborate on, the way that your team did it. So as we've kind of touched on, there's kind of two ways that you can go about it. One is you can use that unique data that you have in-house, but it takes a data scientist or someone who can kind of grab those resources, and being strapped, that wasn't necessarily available for you. The other side of it is traditionally you can go out and hire those research, which you have done. But as you just alluded to, you've went a completely third direction in terms of taking the platform of LinkedIn and using that to start to generate some unique insights. So walk us through kind of the structure of planning, or even the initial hypothesis when you decided that, okay, we don't need to go the other two routes, or we can at the moment, but LinkedIn seems like it may be viable.
Yeah, absolutely. So working with my CMO, we recently joined 3 months ago. We were in the midst of COVID and obviously easing back into reality. We're going back into the world of getting people back into the office, getting people into society again. But yes, in the UK, infections start to pick up again, so that may well reverse. But a couple of months ago, we thought, okay, so So why aren't people coming back to the office? What's the real reason behind that? And our hypothesis is that people don't want to break their new routine, which is working from home. A lot of people, not everybody, feel that working from home is more productive. It's great for well-being as well, work-life balance, which is fantastic. I'm on that side of the fence, but there are more people out there who don't agree with that. They do like the office environment. So we wanted to just get some survey results out there, just a quick poll to ask folks on LinkedIn, what is the real reason why you're so hesitant about returning to work? A simple yes or no, or I think it was two options. Yes, two options. So we asked, was it to do with COVID and your health and your, kind of scared around actually getting infected with COVID, or is it to do with the fact that you don't want to break this routine and you want to continue working from home? And that was linked to the commute. So the two options we gave them was COVID and health, and the second option was daily commute. You don't want to do your commutes anymore. And over 65% believed, they came back and said it's to do with the commute. We don't want to do the daily commute anymore. We're getting more time of our day actually working, and actually rather than spending the hour on the train here and back, if you work in London or wherever it may be, they're actually getting up, they're spending time with the family, so this kind of helped build a story with PR and content as well. And from that, we got like a nice unique hook from that.
Definitely. And so from a promotion perspective, let's say an investment, was this all organic traffic or organic responses that you're generating from LinkedIn? Or was there some kind of muscle behind that from a budget perspective?
It's purely organic. So we didn't use anything like Google surveys to boost that with a sponsored post. We literally just use LinkedIn polls, which is something you can't sponsor and you can't boost out. So it's purely organic. So we just basically asked our internal workforce, we asked them to share it on their LinkedIn profiles. We ran a competition internally and say whoever can get the most shares of their post of the poll will win a 50 quid Amazon voucher. So we only spent 50 quid really, and we got over 250 responses back on the survey, which doesn't sound like a huge number, but it was enough to convince PR outlets and news outlets that it's actually good enough data to form a good news story.
Very interesting. So, and that leads to an interesting angle in terms of once you had that feedback from the LinkedIn audience that you were trying to engage, what was the next course of action? Was that all just content and then directly passing that over to, did you work with a PR agency, or was that again an organic of, okay, someone saw this on LinkedIn, they were interested in the results, and then naturally kind of reached out looking for some additional insight?
We definitely fed it back to our PR agency. This is, this has been hugely valued for us, because, it's not something with PR, they can really do wonders for you in terms of actually elevating your position in the marketplace as thought leaders compared to doing it organically. We don't have that resource internally, so we're working with a B2B specialist PR agency, and then they were able to come back to us with a bit of a spin. So yes, you could argue that there was spend involved in this, because we do work with PR agency, but not actual direct spend. We didn't pay for ads or anything like that to get the responses. So for those businesses out there that do have more PR savvy people within their team, that would be an even bigger saving for you guys, because you wouldn't have to hire a PR agency. So we just saw this data, thought, right, okay, so it's nothing to do with COVID, it's about routine. And the PR agency, they worked with our CMO, and they said, okay, so this is the opportunity, this is the story we've got. People are not hesitant, are hesitant about coming to work because of the commute. So that was the only spend really with the PR agency. But if you got that resource in house, then you won't need to spend that.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And so was there just the one unique piece of content that spun out of it, or were you able to actually turn that one survey into multiple pieces of content and multiple stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So we managed to churn out a press release, a couple of blogs, an infographic as well. So one of the most important and most pinnacle things you can do with your content is repurposing it and try and squeeze as much valuable, as much value as you can out of it, really. So if, for example, you're investing loads of money into a bigger piece like a white paper or an ebook, which some would argue you shouldn't gate, you should actually just give content away for free. But you can turn that larger piece into a series of blogs, a series of videos, a few emails, an infographic, so just repurposing that content. So it's our top priority to get the most return out of our content, our investment, as much as possible, while we are a small business and we don't have the larger budget to play with.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And have you seen, you mentioned at the offset of the call, one of the things that you're focused on is lead generation, right? So from those unique pieces of content that you've been able to generate, have you seen a trickle down effect in terms of whether it's traffic to leads or even leads to opportunities being generated just from that one unique commercial insight that you were able to find?
Not yet, no, because it's still very, very early doors, and that's not the objective of the content piece. The objective of that content piece isn't to generate leads; it's to generate demand and generate, thought leadership and brand. So it's not. So the aim of that piece and that bit of content of the survey is not to go out and get leads. That's not the objective. The objective is to get ourselves out there as thought leaders and to get some coverage out there as well within the HR space. So while we weren't able to justify sales and leads attributed to this, it may well do further down the line because the buying cycle is up to a year and a half. So it could take time to see that kind of return. But what we did get back within the space of weeks is 15 pieces of online coverage with some pretty heavy hitting areas like Forbes, and also within the sort of HR space, the HRdirector.com and people management, HR review. And we totted that up, and that worked out around 5.5 million in audience reach with those 15 pieces of coverage. So while we weren't able to get, the sales and leads, not straight away, because that's not the objective, we did manage to actually give ourselves a lot of reach, which goes into kind of building that brand, which is so important to actually lowering the cost of customer acquisition. So that will allow us to spend less on advertising and actually get more leads, more leads through organic and through word of mouth, which is more important, really, of scaling your business.
Absolutely. That's incredible. So, and you hit on something there from the amount of coverage that you were able to generate across kind of some high grade A publications, and just the trickle down effect of that from a brand perspective, which is really intangible, but will be extremely valuable moving forward. So let's go a month from now, and you're thinking about another unique piece of content that you can generate. How would you approach the LinkedIn strategy going into doing it for the second time, given the success you had on the first time? Would there be anything you would change, or would you run the exact same playbook?
I think it's by that time we run it again, we would have someone internally to get the data out of our system, out of our own user base, and that would add a lot more authority from a larger data set as well. So we'll be able to use those insights and trends. So while we won't rule out using LinkedIn polls again because they work so well, I just felt that was a worthwhile story to tell for those kind of marketers in my similar position who don't have the larger team, the larger budgets, and you're struggling to find that hook for press and for content, that original data that can provide that. So that's one thing. That's one of the key kind of takeaways really is, that you can get some good content and good original data from a small budget. But I think next time, yes, of course, we'll use the internal recruit to mine that data to feed our content, because there's a lot of topics out there to go after at the moment with the current case with COVID, with well-being as well, and sickness absence as well, and kind of tracking with the whereabouts of employees when they're working from home. So we'll be leveraging the internal data definitely from now on. Yeah.
It's fascinating, and it's awesome. It reminds me of kind of the Gong, if you're familiar with Gong, their playbook around the way that they're using their data for salespeople, and that similar kind of play from an HR perspective, which is fascinating. And I know that their content does really well and is often referenced across many different publications.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no ruling out us actually using this data from our system to feed the outbound function as well, in terms of actually going after ABM targets as well, in terms of, what similar companies could achieve with E-Days with the current clients that we have on their scale. So there's a huge opportunity for us with this new data project.
So this has been awesome, and it's fascinating to hear how you can take something like LinkedIn, which is extremely polarizing, but really be able to extract useful information from there without having to invest a ton of information or a ton of resources, and then ultimately turn that around and have that get you featured in grade A publications and start to drive great brand awareness. If people wanted to connect with you and learn more about how you were able to do it, and if you had any additional lessons that maybe we didn't touch on the show, what would be the best way to connect?
With me personally, or with E-Days?
With you personally.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm sure that yourself, Alex, will share those details after the podcast or within on your website. But yes, of course, happy to reach out as well on email if you guys, anybody out there wants to get some advice around the topic we just talked about as well. Awesome.
Well, appreciate you coming on, Tom. It was a great conversation, and look forward to seeing you in the next publication when you have that internal data analyst.
Absolutely. That's great. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed another unfluffy episode of the Show Me the Data podcast. If you want to become part of our community with other demand gen leaders and get exclusive access to Q&As with the guests we have on the show, click the link in the description of the podcast.